The contract clause that destroyed me. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you didn't even bother reading the fine print that would one day ruin your life? Because that's exactly how my story begins. On a Tuesday morning at 9:14 a.m., with a pen in my hand, signing a document I thought represented a dream, but was actually the start of my destruction. I didn't know it then. God, I wish I had. The office smelled like new carpet and cheap coffee. Sunlight was pouring through the tall windows, turning the glass conference table into a mirror that caught every nervous twitch in my face. I'd barely slept the night before. Excitement will do that to you. Jake, my business partner, my brother in everything but blood, slapped the final contract onto the table with that big, easy grin he always wore. The grin that made you feel stupid for ever doubting him. 50-50, he said. Equal partners. Just like we promised. I smiled back. Believed him. Why wouldn't I? For 10 years, we built this company from the ground up. He handled sales. I ran operations. We worked late nights, shared cheap takeout dinners, celebrated small wins like they were Oscars. I trusted him with everything, ideas, access, passwords, my future. So when he said lawyers were expensive and he'd cleaned up the paperwork himself, I didn't question it. That was my first mistake. Maybe my worst. It wasn't until 18 months later that I learned about the clause. The one he buried on page 17. The one I skimmed because lunch was getting cold and his pen was already uncapped. The clause that said if either partner became operationally unavailable for more than 60 consecutive days, the other partner gained full executive control. Full control. Full ownership. Full everything. I didn't notice it then, but Jake did. He noticed everything. The day everything started to unravel wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a screaming match or a betrayal caught on video. It was quiet. Too quiet. It was a Thursday, 6:32 p.m. I remember because I was still at the office, the only one left besides the cleaning crew, staring at an email on my screen with a subject line that made my stomach twist. Internal, financial adjustments review. It wasn't addressed to me. Wasn't meant for me. He sent it to the wrong Adam in his contact list. I wasn't the Adam he intended to loop in. The email spoke about restructuring asset transition and, worst of all, operational shift due to anticipated medical leave. Medical leave? Mine? I scrolled. His reply was attached below it. A thread I never should have seen. Keep everything quiet for now. He'll be out soon. I've arranged it. My heartbeat slowed, then sped up, then stopped entirely for one long, painful second. What had he arranged? What the hell was he planning? I called him immediately. He didn't answer. Not the first time. Not the second. Not the 10th. That's when the air in the office shifted. Heavy, suffocating, electric with fear I hadn't felt since I was a kid. Something was wrong. Something was happening. And I was already too late. The next morning, I walked into the office and found a stranger sitting at my desk. A woman. Sharp suit. Even sharper smile. Her nails clicked against my keyboard like she'd been there for years. "Oh," she said without even looking up. "You must be Adam." I froze. "Who are you?" She finally met my eyes. Interim Operations Director. Interim. Operations. Director. My job. My title. My company. What are you talking about? I asked, disbelief dripping from every word. She shrugged. Jake said you were taking an extended leave. Leave? Leave? I turned before she could say another word and stormed toward Jake's office. My pulse pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. He wasn't there. His lights were off. His desk was cleared. A single envelope sat in the center of the table with my name handwritten on the front. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a doctor's note. A forged one. A horribly obvious, laughably fake document claiming I'd been diagnosed with acute work-related stress and was medically advised to avoid all operational responsibilities for 90 days. 90 days. Exactly 30 more than the clause required. I sat down, slowly, like my legs were no longer mine. My vision blurred. My breath caught. He planned this. He planned everything. Halfway through reading the note, the room began to tilt. Not literally, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. It felt like the ground under my life was shifting, cracking, dissolving. And right there, in that nauseating moment, something clicked in my head. If you've ever watched someone you trusted tighten the screws behind your back, if you've ever felt that cold rush of betrayal when the truth finally hits, I know you understand this part. And if you're still reading, I see you. You're not alone. I went home early that day, not because I was defeated, not yet, but because I needed answers. Real answers. Answers that only one person could give me. I called our accountant, Meredith. She'd been with us from the beginning. Honest, loyal, unshakable. She picked up on the second ring. Meredith, I said, something's happening. I need you to tell me the truth. Silence. Too long. Too heavy. Then she spoke, voice trembling like she was standing on a cliff. Adam, I can't talk on this line. My skin prickled. Meet me, she whispered. Tonight, 8:30, don't come to the office. And don't tell Jake. What? I asked. She inhaled sharply. Because he's been planning this for months. The line went dead. I sat in the dim glow of my car dashboard for nearly an hour after that, replaying her words over and over. Planning this. Months. Everything. Every late meeting. Every in-sign check. Every sudden change. Every excuse. Was I blind? Was I naive? Or did I just believe in the wrong person for too long? My life, my work, my identity, everything I built was in someone else's hands now. Someone who smiled at me while sharpening his knife. I looked at the forged medical note again, at Jake's handwriting on the envelope, at the signature I'd written a year before, stupidly, blindly, sealing my own fate. 90 days. 90 days until he owned everything. Unless I acted. Unless I fought. Unless I found proof stronger than his lies. At 8:12 p.m., I stepped out of my car into the cool evening air, heading toward the place where Meredith told me to meet her. I didn't know what she was going to show me, but what I found that night was only the beginning, and it made everything that came next unavoidable, including the moment I realized Jake wasn't just taking the company. He was taking my life apart, piece by piece. If I'd known what I was about to walk into that night, 8:42 p.m., behind the abandoned textile warehouse on 4th Street, I would have brought someone with me. Anyone. A witness. A friend. A bodyguard. But I walked in alone, clutching my jacket tighter as the air grew colder. Meredith was already there. She stood under a dim street lamp, her arms wrapped around herself, eyes darting around like she expected someone to be watching. Maybe someone was. Thank you for coming, she whispered. Just tell me what's going on, I said. What did Jake do? She hesitated too long. Her breath fogged in the air. Adam, he's preparing to remove you. Officially. Permanently. My chest tightened. Because of the fake medical leave? She shook her head. No, that's just step one. Step one. My pulse quickened. Meredith pulled out a small flash drive from her coat pocket, glancing over her shoulder again. I shouldn't have this. And if Jake finds out I met you, I could lose my license. What's on it? I asked. Proof he's been moving company assets. Quietly. To a shell corporation he controls. My stomach dropped. What shell corporation? She swallowed. A new entity he created 6 months ago. It's structured so that once you're declared inactive, everything flows directly to him. I felt the heat drain from my body. How long has he been planning this? Meredith's voice cracked. Since the night your mother got sick. I stepped back. What? He told people you'd be emotionally distracted. That you'd trust him to handle the paperwork. That you wouldn't notice what he slipped into the contract renewal. I felt punched. Wind knocked out. Vision blurring. My mother's illness, my worst moment, was the moment he saw his opening. He used that. I whispered. He used that. She nodded, tears forming. I tried to warn you, Adam, but he isolated the finance team. He changed passwords, removed shared access. He locked you out without you even realizing it. The street felt colder now, darker, quieter. I forced myself to breathe. What was his plan for the 90 days? That's what I needed to show you, she said. He scheduled a meeting tonight, a midnight meeting, with an attorney who specializes in forced buyouts. Midnight? I asked. Where? She pointed toward the warehouse. Inside, my heart slammed into my ribs. He's in there right now. She nodded. If you want to know the truth, the real truth, you have to hear it for yourself. For a moment, I just stood there, cold wind biting through my clothes, trying to understand how the man I once trusted with my entire life had turned into a stranger capable of gutting me in silence. I looked at the warehouse. Dark, silent, waiting. Are you sure about this? Meredith asked. No, I wasn't. But I pushed the drive into my pocket, squared my shoulders, and stepped toward the rusted metal door. Because I needed to hear it. I needed to know exactly how Jake planned to destroy me. And when I placed my hand on that door handle, I heard voices inside. One of them was his. The other? Some I never expected. The metal handle was ice cold against my palm. I pressed my ear to the door, breath held tight in my throat. Jake's voice carried through the warehouse. Confident, smooth, the exact tone he used when he thought he was untouchable. He won't see it coming. He never reads the paperwork, he said, almost laughing. My jaw clenched hard enough to ache. But it was the second voice, the one I didn't expect, that made my blood freeze. I told you from the start, the man replied. If you want a clean transfer of assets, it has to look voluntary. We can't force incompetence unless he signs something. That voice, I knew it. I knew it far too well. It was our old lawyer, the one who drafted our original partnership contract, the one who swore he represented both of us fairly. He was supposed to have retired last year. So why was he here? At midnight? With my partner? I took a slow step back, heart hammering against my ribs. The warehouse echoed with their voices. He'll sign, Jake said. He always signs. The arrogance in his tone made my hands shake. I had to move, had to get closer, had to hear more. A side window was cracked open, glass smudged with dust and fingerprints. I slid toward it, keeping my head low. Through the gap, I could see their silhouettes at a makeshift table. Papers, laptops, coffee cups, and a stack of folders too familiar for comfort. And then I saw something else. My name, bold, underlined, on a folder sitting right in front of Jake. The lawyer tapped it. You're certain the email went through? The one outlining his medical condition? Jake smirked. Oh, it went through. His HR file is updated. Insurance flagged it. The board will get the notice Monday morning. After that, he shrugged. 60 days start ticking. 60 days. That curse clause. That fine print I ignored. That trap he'd built around my trust. My chest tightened. Rage mixing with disbelief. Disbelief mixing with humiliation. I'd handed him the rope, and he was using it to strangle me. But then the lawyer asked something that made my entire body lock up. And the meeting with his doctor? Did you handle that part? My stomach twisted. Jake leaned back in his chair. Let's just say I sent someone to my place. Someone persuasive. What does that mean? The lawyer asked. It means, Jake said, that the medical record will support everything we're filing. Once he's officially marked as temporarily impaired, the company transition can begin. Temporarily impaired. My breath caught. He wasn't just stealing the company. He was rewriting my identity. I swallowed hard, my throat burning. I needed proof. I needed leverage. I needed anything. That's when my phone buzzed quietly in my pocket. An email notification. I froze. Slowly, I slid the phone out and saw it. Urgent. You need to see this. The sender. Jake. At first I thought he'd realized I was there. But when I opened it, my legs nearly gave out. It was the same email he accidentally sent me earlier. The thread discussing my removal, the Shell Corporation, the timeline. Except now, there were new attachments. Financial summaries showing asset transfers. A scanned medical note with a forged signature. A draft letter to the board declaring me unfit. And worst of all, an internal memo titled, Full Executive Takeover, Final Steps. I read the first lines of the memo, and my vision blurred. All operations under my leadership will begin immediately following Adam's confirmed leave of absence. He will not return to an executive role. The transition is irreversible. Irreversible. That word cut deeper than anything I'd heard through the window. My hand shook violently. This wasn't panic anymore. This was survival. I stepped back from the window, mind racing, pulse pounding. Meredith had been right. He'd been planning this for months. He'd covered every angle, built every lie with precision. But now, I had the email, the attachments, the proof he never meant for me to see. I slipped back into the shadows behind the warehouse, gripping my phone like it was the only thing tethering me to sanity. Because the truth was clear now. Jake wasn't just taking the company. He was erasing me. And as I reached the corner of the building, ready to call Meredith, ready to figure out my next move, a car engine rumbled behind me. Headlights flared on. A door slammed. Footsteps approached fast. I turned and saw someone running straight toward me. To be continued. The footsteps pounded against the pavement. Fast, heavy, too close. I spun around just as the figure broke through the shadows and into the glow of the street lamp. Adam. Meredith's voice cracked as she reached me, out of breath, eyes wide with panic. I let out a shaky exhale. Jesus, you scared me. What are you doing here? I had to warn you, she whispered, grabbing my arm. Someone tipped Jake off. He knows you saw the email. My stomach flipped. Ow! I didn't tell anyone. He has access you don't know about. She pulled me deeper into the alley. And he's not alone in this. You need to understand that. Her voice trembled, not from the cold, but from fear. Real fear. I'd known Meredith for 10 years. I'd never seen her like this. What do you mean he's not alone? I asked. She opened her mouth, but then she froze. Her eyes flicked past me toward the warehouse entrance. I turned. 2 men stepped out of the building, talking quietly. One was Jake. The other was our old lawyer. They hadn't seen us yet, but they were heading toward the parking lot, toward the alley we were standing in. Meredith pulled me behind a dumpster. Listen, we don't have long. Her whisper was barely air. Jake didn't just set up a shell corporation, she said. He funneled assets into it. Accounts receivable, vendor contracts, even intellectual property. All of it is already in his control. My mouth went dry. That's illegal. Only if you can prove it, she said. And he's been erasing your access for months. By Monday, he'll have a temporary injunction preventing you from stepping into the building. I felt the ground shift beneath me. My world was collapsing one calculated decision at a time. What about the forged medical note? I asked. That alone should. Adam. Meredith closed her eyes, bracing herself. He didn't forge it alone. A cold chill crept down my spine. What are you talking about? Your doctor's office got a call last week requesting your records. They thought you authorized it. Someone pretending to you filed a medical release form. My pulse spiked. He impersonated me? Yes. Her voice broke. To set up a false diagnosis. To paint you as unfit. My hands curled into fists. Rage. Helplessness. Shame. All of it choked me at once. How long have you known? I asked quietly. She swallowed hard. Since yesterday. I didn't want to believe it until I saw the paperwork. Adam, he's going to claim you're having a psychological breakdown. The words slammed into me like a physical blow. A breakdown? I echoed. Why would he? Because it makes you legally unable to contest the transfer. You still here, no? He's going to take everything. And he's going to say I agreed to it because I wasn't well. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. A car door slammed in the distance. Jake and a lawyer were getting closer. We need to move, she whispered urgently. Now. I nodded, but something in me snapped. Not fear, not panic, something sharper. Resolve. We're not running, I said quietly. We're finding leverage. She blinked. What leverage? The flash drive, I said. Your files. And the email he just sent me. I pulled out my phone, screen still open on the attachments he'd never intended me to see. This is enough to corner him. Her face twisted. It's a start, but it's not enough to win. Maybe not, I said, but it's enough to scare him. The footsteps grew louder, Jake's unmistakable stride echoing off the brick walls. Meredith gripped my arm. Adam, he won't hesitate. If he catches us, he'll spin it. He'll say you're unstable. He'll call the police himself. I believed her. because I finally understood just how far he'd go. I peeked around the dumpster. Jake was only 30 feet away now, looking around suspiciously, like he sensed something was off. "We need to disappear," Meredith whispered. "I know a place we can talk safely." "Where?" She hesitated. "My home," she said, "but we have to go right now." We slipped into the shadows, moving fast, hearts pounding, staying low until we reached the end of the alley. When we stepped on a side street, I looked back one last time. Jake stood under the street lamp, hands in his pockets, scanning the darkness like a predator who knew his prey was close. And then, almost as if he sensed exactly where I was, he smiled, a slow, chilling smile, because he thought he'd already won. He thought I was helpless. He thought I was alone, but he was wrong. And in less than an hour, I would discover something in Meredith's home office that would blow his entire plan wide open. To be continued. Meredith's house was a small, two-story brick place tucked behind a row of aging maple trees. It was the kind of home where neighbors rarely looked out their windows, where porch lights stayed off, where privacy came naturally. At 9:57 p.m., we slipped inside through the side door, locking it behind us. The moment I stepped into her kitchen, the weight of the night pressed against my ribs. My shirt was still damp from sweat and the cold. My hands shook every time I remembered Jake's voice echoing through that warehouse. "He won't see it coming." He was right. I didn't. Meredith motioned to a chair. "Seat. I'm getting the files." I didn't want to sit. My legs moved restlessly, adrenaline refusing to settle. But I forced myself down, palms pressed flat against the wooden table. The kitchen smelled faintly of cinnamon and printer ink, because boxes of paperwork were stacked everywhere. Some open, some taped shut, some spilling receipts and bank statements. I wasn't prepared for what she was about to show me. She returned carrying a thick manila folder, the edges worn from being handled too many times. "I need you to breathe," she said softly. "I'll breathe when I know what he did." She hesitated, then placed the folder in front of me. Inside was my signature. Everywhere. Not one page. Not 5 pages. Dozens. My name. My handwriting. My initials. Except I'd never seen these documents before. My throat tightened. What is this?" She pulled her chair closer, voice barely audible. "Jake created a secondary operational agreement. A private one. It overrides sections of the original contract. But I never signed anything like that." "I know." She exhaled shakily. "And that's the problem." I flipped through the pages, each one more horrifying than the last. A new workflow delegation structure. A revised responsibility allocation. A pre-authorization for leadership shift in case of medical or emotional incapacitation. And the worst one, a page that legally relinquished operational authority to Jake for the sake of organizational stability. My breath caught. My vision blurred. This wasn't a contract. It was a blueprint for my removal. "Meredith, this signature." I pointed at the bottom of the page. "That's not mine. I would remember signing something like this." She didn't look surprised. "That's because you didn't sign it. At least not intentionally." "What does that mean?" She swallowed, eyes distant. "Do you remember the vendor audit you did last December? When Jake asked you to sign a stack of invoices because accounting needed end-of-year approvals?" "Yeah," I said slowly. "I signed maybe 30 papers that day." She nodded. "You signed 29 invoices and 1 contract modification." My heartbeat slammed against my ribs. "You're saying he buried it in the stack." "I'm saying he counted on you trusting him." Her voice cracked. "And you did." My stomach twisted, nausea rising in my throat. "Was anyone else involved?" I asked. "Anyone on the finance team?" She hesitated. "There's someone," she said. "I don't know how much they know, but someone helped him hide the paper trail." I clenched my fists. "Who?" Just as she opened her mouth, headlights flashed across her living room wall. She froze. I stood. "Is that him?" I whispered. She peeked through the blinds, breath trembling. Then she exhaled in relief. "No, it's just a neighbor. You scared me." I ran a hand through my hair. "I'm sorry. This whole night, I'm not thinking straight." "It's okay." You're processing trauma in real time. She gestured to the folder. And this isn't even the worst part. My head jerked up. What could be worse than this? She sighed and stood, walking toward her home office. Come with me. The room was small but meticulously organized. Monitors, filing cabinets, label binders, post-it notes with dates and arrows. She placed a USB drive on the desk. Everything you saw tonight, she said. I backed it up, but I also found something else. She clicked open a folder on her computer. Email screenshots, transaction logs, phone records, document revision timestamps, IP address histories. But one file made my skin crawl. Internal board memo, confidential draft. It was written by Jake. I opened it. My worst nightmare unfolded in black text. As many of you are aware, Adam's recent behavioral instability has raised concerns about his ability to manage daily operations. In light of his escalating stress responses, declining communication, and concerning emotional reactions, I believe the healthiest option for him and the company is a temporary transition of leadership. My heart stopped. Instability? Declining communication? Concerning emotional reactions? He was building a psychological profile. A fake one. A convincing one. A trap. This is character assassination, I whispered. He's staging a mental breakdown. Meredith nodded. He's already planted the seeds. HR has received 3 anonymous reports claiming you've been erratic and hostile in meetings. My voice shook. Those were him. She nodded again. I'm sure of it. I sank into the chair, head in my hands. He wasn't just taking the company. He was rewriting who I was. In the eyes of the board. In the eyes of our employees. In the eyes of anyone who ever needed to believe him. Meredith sat beside me, hesitating before speaking. There's more, Adam. I looked up exhausted. Just tell me. She clicked another file. A scanned document. A bank form. A signature line. My name again. What is this? I whispered. A financial authorization form, she said softly. It gives Jake the right to open credit lines under the company without dual approval. But we always needed 2 signatures. Yes. She paused. Until this form went through. I felt my pulse pounding in my ears. I never signed this, I said. I know. But look. She zoomed in on the signature. It's based on your real handwriting. It's a digital composite. Someone scanned your signature from an old document and layered it onto this one. So now he has the power to put the company into debt without me knowing. Yes. And when it blows up, he'll say it was my authorization. Yes. I pushed back from the desk, breath unsteady. This can't be undone, I whispered. He set this up so cleanly, so perfectly. How do you even fight something like this? She hesitated. You don't fight it alone, she said. And you don't fight it the way he expects. What does that mean? She looked me dead in the eyes. It means you need to see something I've been afraid to show you. Something I didn't want to believe myself. My stomach dropped. What is it? She reached into her desk drawer and pulled out one final folder, thicker, heavier than the rest. She placed it in front of me, her hand trembling. This, she whispered, is why I think Jake isn't working alone. I stared at the folder. Something in the air shifted. Open it, she said. I lifted the cover, and the first page made the blood drain from my face. Because the person helping Jake was someone I never would have suspected. The folder felt heavier than it should have, as if the paper inside carried weight beyond its pages. I could already feel dread crawling up my spine before I even turned it over. Meredith watched me with a look that wasn't just fear, it was guilt, like she'd been holding her breath for months, waiting for this exact moment. Just open it, she whispered. You need to see. I did. And the moment my eyes hit the first page, the room seemed to tilt. A name stared back at me. A signature. Someone I trusted. Someone who had keys to the office. Someone who knew our systems. Someone who knew me. Laura. My ex-fiancée. My chest tightened so violently, I had to grip the edge of the desk. No. Y whisperat. No. She wouldn't. This has to be a mistake. I thought so too, Meredith said. But it's not. I flipped the page, hands trembling. Emails. Texts, call logs, meetings between her and Jake going back 6 months. 6 months. That was 2 months before she left me. 2 months before she ended our engagement with a vague, "I just need space" speech and disappeared from my life overnight. It wasn't cold feet. It wasn't stress. It wasn't the distance growing between us. She'd already chosen a side. My stomach dropped. Meredith continued, voice gentle. "Adam," she didn't just help him. She guided him. She reviewed the contracts. She helped draft the amendments. She knew exactly where blind spots were. Blind spots. My weaknesses. My trust. Everything I ever told Laura in confidence. My work habits, my faith in Jake, my tendency to rush through paperwork when overwhelmed. She handed all of it to him like ammunition. "Why?" I croaked. "Why would she do this?" Meredith hesitated. Her silence was the answer. I forced myself to flip another page. Photos, screenshots, proof of payments. Jake had been sending her money. Not huge amounts. $1, $200 here, $2,500 there. But consistent. Monthly. Like a retainer fee for betrayal. A bitter laugh slipped out before I could stop it. I was engaged to someone who had a salary for stabbing me in the back. Meredith didn't laugh. She swallowed. "Hard. That's not even the worst part," she said. "What could possibly be worse?" She opened a second folder, one I hadn't noticed on the side of the desk. Inside were more documents. Same handwriting, same signatures, same forged authorization pages. But at the top of one form, highlighted in yellow, was something that made my blood run cold. Statement of psychological concern, provided by former partner. I scanned it in seconds. Laura had filed a formal statement claiming she'd witnessed severe mood instability, impulsive tendencies, reckless decision-making, episodes of paranoia, unpredictable anger. A perfect picture of someone unfit to run a company. A perfect tool for Jake's plan. And at the bottom, her signature. I felt sick. She gave them this? I whispered. She told them I was unstable? Meredith nodded. Her testimony is what convinced HR to start a confidential file. Jake knew her statement would carry weight. My fists trembled. Because we were engaged. Exactly. My pulse throbbed in my ears. This was a coordinated attack. A systematic dismantling of my reputation. My credibility. My identity. They weren't just taking the company. They were taking my sanity. My history. My truth. Piece by piece. I stood abruptly, pacing the room. She pretended to love me while planning this? For what? Money? Loyalty to Jake? Did they? I stopped myself. Meredith didn't meet my eyes. "No," I said. No, don't tell me they were." "Yes," she whispered. "They were seeing each other before she left you." The air punched out of my lungs. I stumbled back into the chair like someone had kicked my knees out. "She left you," Meredith continued carefully, "because Jake told her the plan was nearly ready. That once you were out, she could help manage the company as his partner. Partner, not romantic partner. Business partner. She left me for a promotion." The betrayal burned so deep my bones felt scorched. "What else did she do?" I said through clenched teeth. "Tell me everything." Meredith did. She pointed to a stack of notes. She sat in on at least 3 legal meetings. She gave him your routine, when you were most distracted, when you worked late, when you'd be least likely to look through documents. I closed my eyes, chest rising and falling too fast. She also, Meredith whispered, helped him isolate you from the team. She's the reason several people started going to him instead of you. She started rumors about your stress levels. Rumors. Seeds of doubt. Poison roots. She didn't just betray me. She prepared the battlefield for my execution. I sat there in silence, the weight of everything crushing down on me. For a long moment, the only sound was the quiet hum of her computer. Then I forced myself to speak. "What do we do now?" Meredith looked at me, really looked at me. "Adam, the only way you survive this is if you confront someone who never expected you to show up." "Who?" "Our lawyer," she said. "He's the one who drafted the amendments. He's the one Jake trusts. And he's the one who knows where the bodies are buried. I'm not sure he'll talk." Not willingly, she agreed. But he's scared of losing his license. If you corner him with proof, real proof, he might break. I nodded slowly, and she continued, there's something else. She opened yet another file, this one small, thin, marked with a single word on the tab. Recording. My heartbeat stilled. What recording? She met my eyes, hesitation flickering before she forced the truth out. Your lawyer left a voicemail on the firm server. He tried to delete it. I recovered it. What does it say? Her jaw tightened. It's evidence Jake never wanted anyone to hear. I exhaled hard. Then play it. She inserted the flash drive in her laptop, clicked on the audio file, and sat beside me. A crackle, a breath, a voice. Shaky, panicked. Jake, we made a mistake. If Adam ever finds out what we did, we're finished. You need to call me back, immediately. My blood froze. Meredith pressed pause. This, she said softly, is leverage. For the first time in hours, maybe days, I felt something shift inside me. A spark, small but real. Hope. I straightened. We take this to the lawyer. Her eyes widened. Tonight? Yes. Adam. He might call Jake. I shook my head. No, not if he thinks I already know everything. Meredith hesitated. Are you sure you want to do this? I nodded, because I knew something Jake didn't. He thought he'd taken everything from me, but he forgot something critical. A desperate man doesn't break. A desperate man fights. And I was done being prey. I grabbed the folder, the flash drive, the printed screenshots. Let's go, I said. We headed toward the door, hearts pounding, because in less than an hour, I would be standing face to face with a man who helped dismantle my life. And he had no idea I was coming. What we were about to do. Meredith locked her door, hands trembling slightly, but her voice stayed steady. The firm is 10 minutes away, she said. If he's still working late, we might catch him alone. Good, I replied. I want him alone. Truth was, I didn't know what I wanted. Answers? Revenge? Just one person to admit what they did. I wasn't sure anymore. But I knew this. I wasn't going to let Jake or his accomplices walk me into a fabricated meltdown and steal everything I'd built. Not without hearing the truth from the man who'd helped craft the knife. We drove in silence. The roads were empty. 9:58 p.m. on a Thursday, cold air misting the windows. Streetlights flickered across the dashboard, revealing flashes of anger in my reflection. I wasn't the same man who sat signing contracts 2 years ago. I wasn't naive anymore. We pulled into the law firm's parking lot at 10:07 p.m. Only one car remained, the old silver Lexus I recognized instantly. Our former attorney, Peter Caldwell, always worked late. He loved the quiet. Tonight, that worked in my favor. Are you ready? Meredith asked quietly. No, I said honestly. But it doesn't matter. We approached the glass door. The lobby lights were dimmed, but Caldwell's office, second floor, corner room, still glowed a soft golden yellow. He was there. I pushed open the door, the bell above it chiming softly. Meredith stayed close behind me. When we climbed the stairs and reached the hallway, I could hear him typing. Fast, urgent, like someone scrambling to finish something before sunrise. I didn't knock. I opened the door and stepped inside. Caldwell jerked upright, his eyes widening the moment he saw me. Hey, Adam. His voice cracked. What on earth? Why are you here? I didn't blink. We need to talk. He glanced at Meredith, then at the folder in my hand. His face drained of color. No, this isn't. Adam, listen, this isn't good. You can save it. I cut in. I heard your voicemail. He froze. Meredith played the recording without waiting for his permission. Jake, we made a mistake. If Adam ever finds out what we did, we're finished. Caldwell lunged toward the laptop, but I stepped in front of him, blocking his path. Sit down, I said. He sank into his chair like his bones gave out. I want the truth, I said quietly. All of it. His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. Adam, you don't understand. Jake, he told me. He said you were aware, that you approved the restructuring. I slammed the folder onto his desk. My signature was forged. My medical record was tampered with. My reputation was destroyed. And you helped him do it. Caldwell's hand shook. For the first time, I saw fear, not guilt, not regret, but pure fear. I didn't forge anything, he whispered. But you drafted the documents, Meredith said sharply. You had amendments. You advised him on how to remove Adam from the company. I was manipulated, Caldwell insisted. Jake told me Adam was stepping back, that he was dealing with stress issues, that you two had discussed it privately. That's a lie, I snapped. Caldwell rubbed his forehead with trembling fingers. He brought your ex-fiancée to a meeting. She testified that you were struggling and wanted temporary relief from decision-making. She made it sound like you were drowning. Hearing Laura's name felt like swallowing glass. She forged statements, I said. We have proof. Caldwell shook his head vigorously. I didn't know they were forged. I swear to you. She seemed credible. She said you'd been isolating yourself, that you were afraid to admit you needed help. Isolating, afraid, unstable. She fed him the exact narrative Jake needed. And what about the clause he buried in the contract? I asked. You expect me to believe you didn't notice it? He hesitated, and his silence was an answer. You added that clause, I said slowly. Jake didn't. You did. His shoulders sagged as if the weight of what he'd done finally smothered him. I thought it was a precaution, he stammered. Jake said you two agreed on equal control, that if either of you became unavailable, the other needed authority to protect the company. My voice dropped. He played you, and I meant it. Caldwell wasn't innocent. Far from it. But he'd been used just as effectively as I had. Why didn't you come to me? I asked. He closed his eyes. Because the moment I suspected something was wrong, it was too late. He'd already moved the assets. So he did know. He knew and said nothing. My pulse surged with heat. Then you're going to fix it. Caldwell looked up, startled. How? You're going to tell me who else Jake worked with, I said. All of it. Every detail. Every lie. Every meeting. Every plan. He hesitated. Then his face twisted with something like resignation. There was someone else, he whispered. My jaw tightened. Who? He swallowed again. Jake had a second partner helping him. Someone who coordinated the transfers. Someone who handled the financial back end. That was Laura, I said. No, he shook his head. Not her. My breath stilled. Then who? He hesitated for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. And then he did. Someone inside your company. The room felt colder instantly. Who? I repeated. Caldwell wiped sweat from his forehead. Your CFO. I blinked. Mark had been with me since the beginning. A quiet, steady man. Loyal. Consistent. Someone I trusted with budgets, payroll, projections, everything. That's not possible, I said. He's not like that. He is, Caldwell said. And he's deeper in this than Jake is. Without him, none of this infrastructure could have been built. My blood ran cold. Prove it. Caldwell reached into his desk drawer, pulled out a thumb drive, and set it on the table. This is every internal memo Jake sent me. Every instruction. Every revision. And every time Mark was copied on the thread. I stared at the drive. Why do you have this? Meredith asked. Because, he whispered, I knew this day could come. He wasn't protecting Jake. He was protecting himself. I grabbed the drive. You're coming with us. Caldwell blinked. What? What? Because tomorrow morning, I said, we take this to the board. And you're going to back every word with testimony. He opened his mouth, fear flooding his features. Adam, they'll ruin me. I stepped closer. Then you understand exactly what they try to do to me. He looked away. Then, slowly, he nodded. We left the office at 11:14 p.m. Caldwell followed us to the parking lot, pale and shaken, but ready to talk. But as I reached my car, my phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. I opened it. A single line appeared on the screen. You think you know everything. You don't. Mark. My blood froze. Meredith saw the look on my face. What is it? I turned the screen toward her. Her expression collapsed. Because there was only one way Mark could have known what we were doing. He was watching us. For a long moment, none of us moved. Just the cold night air, my phone glowing in my hand, and that single letter staring back at me. Mark. The quiet one. The steady one. The man who sent me birthday cards every year and brought donuts to Friday meetings. The man who apparently had no problem burning my life to ash. Caldwell slowly backed up a step. And he knows. He must have eyes on the firm. Meredith's voice trembled. Adam, we need to go. Right now. But I didn't move. Not yet. Because something inside me had snapped. Not in a dangerous way, but in a painfully clear way. Fear had been ruling my life for weeks. Fear of Jake. Fear of Laura. Fear of being cornered, lied about, erased. But that message, that single line from someone who'd pretended to be my ally for years, it killed the fear. Burn it clean. I finally exhaled, steady and deliberate. You want me to know he's watching? That means he's hiding something. Meredith touched my arm. We should go somewhere safe before. No, I said. We're going to see him. Both of them stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Caldwell shook his head. You can't confront him. He's dangerous, Adam. Maybe not physically, but legally, strategically, ethically. He's got no limits. Good. Neither did I. Not anymore. He's been hiding everything, I said. He wants control, and he thinks I'm too shaken to fight. So let's prove him wrong. Meredith whispered. Please think this through. I have, I said. We're going to the office. The drive there. It was 11:32 p.m. when we pulled into the nearly empty parking lot of my own company. My building, my name on the sign, the place I'd pour my life into. Seeing it now felt different. Colder. Hollow. A space I no longer recognized. The lights on the second floor were on. Finance. Mark's domain. Of course he was still here. Of course he knew we'd come. Meredith parked in the shadows. Are you sure? I nodded. If I don't face him tonight, he'll twist this before sunrise. Caldwell swallowed. He'll have excuses. Prepared ones. I don't need excuses, I said. I need reactions. The confrontation. We took the back elevator, one only employees knew existed, and stepped on the second floor. The hallway lights flickered softly, casting long shadows across the carpet. I could hear typing behind Mark's door. Fast. Efficient. Like someone cleaning up loose ends. I pushed the door open without knocking. Mark looked up calmly, too calmly, as if he'd been expecting all three of us. Adam, he said with that soft, even voice he always used. You're here late. It was the same tone he used when reminding me to sign payroll. The same tone he used when congratulating me on securing new clients. The tone of friend. Except now, it was the tone of a predator pretending to be harmless. I stepped closer. You sent the text. A faint smile tugged at his mouth. I wanted you to know you're walking into a mess bigger than Jake. Oh, I asked. And you're the one holding the mop? He didn't laugh. Didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned back his chair, fingers steepled. You think this is about betrayal? He said. It's not. Then what is it? I asked coldly. It's math, he said simply. You were the variable that didn't scale. Meredith inhaled sharply. Mark, what did you do? He ignored her. You were good at building, he continued, but terrible at expanding. The company hit a ceiling under you. Jake saw it. Laura saw it. And eventually, so did I. My jaw tightened. So you decided to erase me. I decided to save the company, he corrected smoothly. You created something incredible, Adam. But not everyone is meant to run what they build. I stepped closer. You forged my signature. He gave a tiny shrug. I duplicated a signature you'd already given us. For convenience. For convenience, I repeated. You stole my company. No, he said calmly. I transitioned it. Caldwell snapped. You broke the law. Mark finally looked irritated. Please. White-collar strategy is a gray ocean. I didn't forge. I didn't steal. I leveraged. And I did it with legal counsel. He glanced at Caldwell. And that look said everything. Caldwell backed up a half step. Mark, don't drag me into this. Mark smirked. You think Adam doesn't know? You're the one who drafted most of the loopholes. He turned back to me. You want honesty? Fine. Here it is. He stood, palms pressed to the desk. You trusted people too much. You delegated things you should have guarded. You didn't keep up with the growth you created. And the company needed a leader willing to do what you couldn't. It was surreal. He was talking like he was doing me a favor. And Jake. I asked. Why him? Mark shrugged. He listened. And Laura? I asked, voice colder. She was useful, he said simply. She gave us personal insight, and she needed the money. I felt something inside me crack. Not break, not shatter, just crack open enough to let clarity pour through. You think you've already won, I said softly. Mark smiled. Haven't we? I took a slow breath. Then I pulled Caldwell's thumb drive from my pocket and placed it on the desk. Press play, I said. Mark frowned. What is that? The voicemail, Caldwell whispered. The one you didn't know existed. Mark's smirk wavered, just slightly. Good. I hit play. Caldwell's voice filled the room. Jake, we made a mistake. If Adam ever finds out what we did, we're finished. Mark stiffened. His eyes flicked to Caldwell. You idiot, he hissed. You told him. I didn't, Caldwell said, stepping back. I tried to delete it. They recovered it. For the first time since I walked in. Mark looked rattled. Adam, he said slowly, choosing his words with surgical care. This doesn't prove anything. Oh, it proves plenty, I said. It proves a conspiracy. Dishonesty. Intent to deceive. Intent is not illegal, he snapped. No, I said, leaning forward, but asset transfers without full partner consent are. So are falsified medical statements, and forged signatures, and HR manipulation, and coordinated removal attempts. His jaw clenched. I have everything, I said quietly. Emails, documents, witnesses. You can't bury this anymore. Mark's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You don't know what you're playing with, Adam. Neither do you. The tension snapped. He grabbed a folder from his desk, a thick one, and shoved it into a drawer. But not before I saw the label. Final transition, implementation. My heart stopped. He slammed the drawer shut. You're done, he said. You just don't know it yet. No, I said, stepping back. You're done. And something shifted in his eyes. Not fear. Rage. You should have left it alone, he said quietly. You have no idea what comes next. I turned toward the door. Oh, I do, I said. And I'll be ready. Because in his anger, in his slip of control, he revealed more than he meant to. And as we stepped out of the office, leaving him standing there with trembling hands and burning eyes, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This wasn't about Jake anymore. Mark was the real architect, and he wasn't finished. But neither was I. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark's face, calm, calculated, cold. A man who'd spent years standing beside me, quietly sharpening the knife he would eventually use to gut my life. By 6:12 a.m., I was sitting at my kitchen table, staring at the thumb drive like it was a live grenade. Meredith had crashed on my couch, exhausted, but I couldn't close my eyes without feeling like something was about to explode. When she woke, her first words were, "We need evidence that can burn him." I know, I said, and we need it before he files anything today. I knew that too, because today, Friday, was the day Mark planned to submit the final transition documents. Once filed, once approved, once logged into the system, my ownership would evaporate. My voice would be gone. My company would belong to the two men who plotted my removal. We had maybe a few hours, so we went back to the only place with answers, the office, the building that no longer felt like mine. 8:04 a.m. Employees were drifting in, coffee cups, laptop bags, small talk floating through the lobby. People I hired, people I trained, people who believed in me, and not one of them knew I'd become a ghost in my own company. Meredith and I slipped upstairs to the conference room, where the board would be meeting in 4 hours. Caldwell was already waiting inside, pacing like a man preparing to confess his sins. We need something stronger, he said immediately. The voicemail helps, but won't be enough to stop Mark. What about the contracts? I asked. He shook his head. They'll argue you signed everything willingly. The forgeries aren't obvious enough. I ran a hand through my hair. So what will be enough? Caldwell hesitated, then whispered, "We need proof of intent." He looked at me with a strange expression, and I think I know where to find it. The room none of us dared enter. It was the archive room, a dark, Temperature-controlled space in the basement. No cameras. No windows. Only accessible by two people. Me and Mark. Why would anything be down here? I asked as we descended the stairs. Caldwell answered without looking back. Because Mark doesn't trust digital trails. If he needed to keep anything dangerous, it would be on paper. The lights flickered when I flipped the switch. The shelves stretched 20 feet long. Old contracts, payroll logs, tax records, vendor agreements. It smelled like dust and forgotten truths. We searched for 5 minutes, then 10, then 20. Nothing. We're missing something, Meredith murmured. Keep looking, I said. But then, a sound. The faint hum of a machine. I turned slowly. The security monitor in the corner. For tiny screens. For camera feeds. Basement stairwell. Lua Ding Dok. Lobby. And the courtroom conference room on the first floor. My eyes snapped to it. Mark was inside. Not alone. Jake was with him. And Laura. All three sitting together at the table like a triumvirate of betrayal. Passing documents. Pointing at pages. Whispering. What the hell? Meredith whispered. But I was frozen. Watching something unfold on the fourth screen. Jake stood. Closed the blinds. Turned to Mark. And then Laura did something I'll never forget. She pulled out her phone and started recording him. Mark didn't notice. He was too busy gloating. We watched him pacing the room, frustration tight across his face. This is the last step, he was saying. Once the board signs off, Adam's completely out. Legally, financially, permanently. He won't have grounds to contest anything. Jake nodded. And HR? Handled, Mark said. The psychological file is airtight. His ex gave strong testimony. Internal reports support it. He'll look unstable if he tries to fight. Laura zoomed her camera closer. Shaky hands. Tears in her eyes. Not guilt tears. Fear tears. Are you sure about this? Jake asked. Mark rounded on him. Don't get soft now. We didn't come this far to let him wiggle out. I built this plan for 2 years. I'm not letting anyone ruin it. 2 years. He said it so openly, so arrogantly, like he wasn't spelling out a crime in broad daylight. But then, he said something even worse. Something that made even Caldwell stop breathing. Once Adam is out, Mark said, we'll liquidate his shares through the Shell Corporation. Then we restructure. Then we sell. A clean exit, a massive profit, and he'll be too busy trying to prove his stability to interfere. He laughed. He actually laughed. Laura lowered her phone in horror. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't known the whole plan. Not all of it. And now she looked sick. Turn it up, I whispered, even though he couldn't. Mark kept talking, revealing everything. Asset transfers, shell accounts, medical manipulation, HR collusion, forgery, all of it. Jake ran a hand across his face. We need to delete everything after the board signs. We will, Mark said. But until then, nobody goes near the archive room. It's the only place. He stopped, looked around. For a second, I thought he'd seen us through the screen. But no, he was noticing Laura's behavior. What are you doing with your phone? He snapped. Laura froze. Jake looked at her sharply. She stammered. Nothing, my mom texted. But her voice was too shaky. And Mark wasn't stupid. He took a step toward her. Give me the phone. Her chair scraped the floor. She stood quickly. I have to go. Give me the phone, Laura. His voice wasn't calm anymore. Jake reached to grab her arm. Laura bolted. She ran out of the conference room, through the hallway. And then, the camera feed cut to static. Holy God, Caldwell whispered. She recorded him admitting everything. And now they know, Meredith said, voice shaking. My pulse thundered. Where's she going? We looked at the live feed for the stairwell. Laura burst into view, sprinting, terrified. Her purse slipped. Her phone hit the ground. She grabbed it, breathless, eyes darting like prey being hunted. And then, she ran straight for one place I never expected. The basement. Our basement. The basement we were in. The realization hit all of us at the same time. She's coming here, Meredith whispered. Caldwell stepped back from the monitor. And if she's running from them, The stairwell door above us slammed open. Footsteps. Fast. Desperate. Laura's voice echoed down the hall. Adam? Adam? Are you here? Please, please, you have to help me. Meredith and Caldwell exchanged terrified looks. I stepped toward the hallway, my heartbeat shaking the air inside my chest. Because whatever Laura had on that phone, whatever she recorded, whatever she knew now, it was enough to burn the entire conspiracy down. But only if we got to her before they did. And from the sound of the footsteps pounding down the stairs behind her, we weren't the only ones coming. Laura stumbled into the basement hallway, her breath sharp and ragged, her mascara streaked down her cheeks, her hair clinging to her temples. She looked nothing like the woman who walked out of my life a year ago, polished, confident, composed. This Laura was terrified. Adam, she choked on the words. He's going to kill me. He knows I recorded him. I stepped toward her, hands raised. Where's the phone? She dug it out of her coat, gripping it so tightly her knuckles turned white. He tried to take it. I ran. Behind her, the stairwell door slammed again. Heavy footsteps. Jake's voice thundered down the steps. Laura, Meredith grabbed my arm, trembling. We need to move. Now. Caldwell was already backing into the archive room. Lock the door. We can hide. No. My voice came out steady. Steadier than I expected. This ends tonight. Laura clung to me like she might collapse. Please don't let him take it. I won't, I said. Stay behind me. Jake appeared at the bottom of the stairs, chest heaving, eyes wild. Mark was only seconds behind him. The moment Jake spotted us, he froze. Then he laughed, short, breathless, deranged. Wow, he said. Look at that. The whole little rebellion. Right here in the basement. Like rats in the dark. Mark stepped beside him, smoothing his shirt calm again. Too calm. Give us the phone, Laura. She shrank behind me. Jake took a step forward. She doesn't understand what she has. She recorded one sentence. Out of context, it's nothing. Mark's voice sharpened. And if you think you can use it, you won't. Because you won't leave this basement with it. I stepped in front of Laura, directly between her and them. You're not touching her, I said quietly. Mark smirked. Adam, this was cute at first, but you've lost. You're outmaneuvered, outvoted, out of your depth. Oh, yeah. Not anymore. He laughed softly. Then prove it. And that's when everything shifted. Meredith stepped forward, not shaking, not frightened, holding up Caldwell's thumb drive like it was a badge of power. Mark, she said, voice sharp as glass. This isn't just one recording. We have voicemails, the shell transfers, the forged amendments, the HR documents, the digital composites of Adam's signature. Mark's eyes flicked to Caldwell. You idiot, he hissed. But Caldwell didn't back down this time. For the first time, he stood with us. I'm done covering for you, Caldwell said. You used me. Manipulated me. You told me this was a simple restructuring. You never told me you were destroying the man who built the company. Jake scoffed. Spare us the confession. You're just scared. No, Caldwell said. I'm done being a coward. The basement felt thick with tension, electrical, buzzing alive. Mark's voice dropped to a growl. Hand over the evidence. Or what? I asked. You'll fabricate another meltdown? Another diagnosis? Another anonymous complaint? He didn't respond. Because he knew I was right. Jay tried again. Adam, be reasonable. This is business. We can work something out. A settlement. A payout. Something fair. Fair. I repeated. You stole my signature. My authority. My reputation. You forged documents to declare me unstable. And for what? Mark answered instead. For profit. 2 words. Cold. Flat. Truthful. Because unlike Jake, unlike Laura, unlike Caldwell, Mark wasn't emotional. He was efficient. A predator disguised as an accountant. And that's when I knew something with perfect, terrifying clarity. Mark had orchestrated everything. And monsters don't stop until someone stops them. I straightened. Here's what's going to happen, I said. We're walking upstairs. Together. All of us. And we're going into the board meeting. And you're going to sit there while we play the recording. Mark tilted his head. And if we don't, I stepped closer until I could see my reflection in his glasses. Then the footage goes to law enforcement, and the state licensing board, and the press, and every investor you've ever lied to. For the first time, Mark's composure cracked. Barely, just a flicker. But I saw it. Jake looked between us, confused, panicked. He wasn't the mastermind. He was the puppet who thought he was the puppeteer. Laura whispered behind me, "They'll come after me." I didn't take my eyes off Mark. "You're protected. You gave us the evidence." Mark's lip curled. "And you think the board will take your side?" I took a deep breath. "Let's go find out." The board meeting that changed everything. 9:59 a.m. The board members filed into the conference room, confused at the lineup. Me, Meredith Caldwell, Laura, shaking, pale, and Jake and Mark trailing behind like two men approaching a firing line. Mark tried to open the meeting himself. "It appears we have a misunderstanding." "Sit down," I said. The entire room froze. And Mark, after a long, brittle pause, sat. I placed a phone on the table. "I'm invoking executive review under Section 14B of our founding bylaws." The board exchanged glances. It was a rule rarely used. A last resort measure. A legal provision allowing a co-founder to demand a full audit of internal actions. Jake blinked. "Adam, come on." I pressed play. Mark's voice filled the room. "Once Adam is out, we'll liquidate his shares, restructure, sell. He'll be too busy trying to prove his stability to interfere." Absolute silence. Then chaos. Board members whispering. One woman covering her mouth. Another slamming her pen down. Mark shot to his feet. "Out of context." Caldwell stood too. "Then let's add context." He placed a thumb drive on the table. Minutes later, the board had emails with forged attachments, fraudulent amendments, financial transfers to a shell corporation, testimony from Laura, recordings, timestamps, metadata, a full written confession Mark didn't mean to give. By 11:46 a.m., it was over. Jake was removed. Laura suspended from anything involving the company. And Mark was escorted out by security. He didn't fight, didn't scream. He looked at me once, just once, with a quiet, chilling promise in his eyes. This isn't finished. But he left. And just like that, I had my company back, or what was left of it. 3 years later. It took years to rebuild. Years of audits, lawsuits, therapy sessions, sleepless nights, and the lingering ache of betrayal. But step by step, piece by piece, I reclaimed the one thing I'd nearly lost. Myself. The company? It survived, changed, adapted. But I didn't run it alone anymore. I learned from the scars. One morning, 3 years to the day after the board meeting, I was having coffee in the lobby when the doors opened. A familiar silhouette stepped inside. Older, thinner, eyes colder than I remembered. Mark. He stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets. "Adam." My pulse steadied, not panic, not afraid. "Why are you here?" He studied me, slow, calculating. Then he smiled. "Because I heard you're doing well," he said. And I thought it was time we talked about unfinished business. I stared at him, the weight of 3 years settling behind my ribs like armor. "No," I said quietly. "We have no unfinished business." He tilted his head. "You sure?" "Yes," I said, "because I learned something you never did." His brow lifted. "What's that?" I held his gaze unwavering. "That sometimes the strongest thing you can do with a past like ours is walk away from it." He didn't move, didn't breathe. Then he smirked, just a little, and turned to leave. "Until next time," he said softly. "There won't be a next time," I replied. But he was already gone. Some wounds never fully heal. Some betrayals leave scars that flare up when you least expect them. But I learned something in those years. Family isn't who shares your blood. Trust isn't built overnight. And survival isn't about winning every battle. It's about refusing to let the battles define you. And when I walked back through the lobby that morning, sunlight pouring across the tiles, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not perfect, not complete, but real. And sometimes that's enough. In a story.